The idea is, though, that the gang is using the paint party as an excuse to drink together, right? But then Elaine gets an anonymous love poem in the mail. Elaine is clearly taken by the poem and thinks it's really pretty. And I mean, it's fine. I kind of feel like most women nowadays wouldn't be as into this, but maybe I'm wrong.
He usually is.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of Taxi. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, or just don't remember how it works, I'm going to give you a quick agenda. We start with the potent notables, which are some interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then I go into the episode overview, which is where I talk about what happened in the episode from beginning to end. And then we do the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the episode in 5 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. We tally up all the episodes, average it out, and that gives you a series ranking, because we're trying to figure out what is the best sitcom of all time. So we'll rank every single episode of a selected series, and this series is Taxi. Now today we're going to be ranking the 12th episode of the second season, titled Elaine's Secret Admirer, which was written by Barry Kemp and directed by James Burrows, of course. Now if you're a fan of these episodes, or you're just a fan of Taxi and you enjoy consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episodes, comment, email your questions or suggestions to info@therankpodcast.com. If you super duper like it, consider becoming a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. And just so you know, for any of the sitcoms that have been out for a long time, and this one's been out for a long time, there will be spoilers. So there's your spoiler alert. But let's dive in, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So this 34th episode of Taxi was released on Tuesday, December 4th, 1979. I couldn't find the ratings for Taxi this week, and I'm a bit concerned I might not be able to find them again for a while. First, it was Ratings Ryan, and now the New York Times Archive doesn't seem to be covering it anymore. Hopefully it's just an aberration, so in lieu of the weekly ratings, I'm going to give you all a breakdown of the season's ratings. Now, of the 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, CBS won the season and ABC was second. Taxi was the 13th highest rated show for the season at a 22.4, which made it the second highest rated of ABC's Tuesday night lineup behind Three's Company, which was second at a 26.3. It was actually the 4th highest rated show for ABC behind Three's Company, That's Incredible, and 8 is Enough. 60 Minutes won the title of the highest rated show for the season with a 28.4. So on to the episode. Christopher Lloyd's audition outfit, a worn jacket, jeans, and boots, so perfectly captured Reverend Jim's off-kilter vibe that costume designers incorporated it directly into the character's look. That beat-up style became Jim's trademark. Originally, the slow, off-the-rocker traits were intended for Tony Banta, but they reassigned it to Reverend Jim after Tony Danza took on a more naive character approach. That allowed Jim's offbeat persona to shine in episodes like this one. So let's dive into the episode overview. We open the episode in Elaine's apartment with the group arriving to help her paint. It's established that she paints her apartment after every breakup, and apparently she's had a lot of breakups. That was kind of cute, I guess. This was a slow start of an episode. It took a while for something to really catch on for me, although I did laugh when Jim suggested that they use their hair to paint. But other than that, it wasn't doing much for me. The idea is, though, that the gang is using the paint party as an excuse to drink together, right? But then Elaine gets an anonymous love poem in the mail. Elaine is clearly taken by the poem and thinks it's really pretty. And I mean, it's fine. I kind of feel like most women nowadays wouldn't be as into this, but maybe I'm wrong.
He usually is.
You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this. We head back to the garage, and lo and behold, Elaine has another poem in her locker, which sort of makes it obvious that it has to be someone that works at the garage, or else it's really creepy. Louis calls it a MASH letter in the episode, which I had never heard before. Elaine is like, it's not a MASH letter. So I'm like, okay, I gotta look it up. So I went and looked it up, and the description of what a MASH letter was, or MASH note, that I found describes exactly what this is. So I'm not sure why she said it's not that. Now, Louis overhears Elaine saying that she doesn't know who the poems are from and that they're getting her hot, which felt weird. But of course, he decides to take credit for them, got a chance to make Elaine hot, I guess. Even going so far as to try to recite one because Elaine tries to test him. Now, I'm not sure why he bothered trying to recite one, because he obviously wouldn't know what was written. Just a weird choice he decides to make. Anyway, she's thinking it might be this Don Reevy guy, who apparently has hit on her a bunch and she clearly finds attractive. Around the time that guy shows up, we find out that it's actually Jim writing the poems, and Don does exactly what Louis does, but I guess because he's so much more attractive, Elaine doesn't test him on it. He asks her her out. She says yes, and now she's banging the pretty guy that she wants to have written the poetry instead of the guy that actually did. Naturally, Alex, whose business this is none of, can't stand to let this continue. Now, I say it's none of his business, but really, I think this is an interjection that is warranted. Oftentimes, I feel like Alex kind of butts in where he's not needed, but, you know, in this case, okay. He tells Elaine that he knows who wrote the poems and that it's not Don, but won't tell her who actually did it. Then Jim gives himself away, and for some reason, this hurts Elaine's feelings. I don't know, maybe that she's been duped by Don, I guess? But like, she wanted to know, and now she knows, and then she's upset, and she goes real hard on poor Jim here, saying that at least now she knows, thanks to Jim, that there will never be castles in her life, which feels pretty harsh. And also, you know, castles aren't in many people's lives, so not that big of a deal. Jim, of course, feels really bad and ends up building her a castle made of metal from his van and putting it in her living room unbeknownst to her. Now, Elaine's gonna come home and find her couch missing, and in its place, a waist-high metal castle with Jim inside it. And she's not really surprised at all. She's just like, oh, yep, Jim should be in my apartment, and him having made me a useless castle that takes up my living room is exactly what I want, and isn't coming off as creepy stalker vibes. What was going on in the late 70s and early 80s? Is this what women were expecting from men?
Simpler times.
But that's where the episode ends. I know I'm bashing it, but I enjoyed it while I was watching for the most part. One thing is for sure, Christopher Lloyd is a fantastic add to the show. If this hadn't had him and they had used like a guest star or something, I bet this would have been unwatchable. But let's find out how it ranked.
Oh, rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. Now, before I start, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help us out, or comment. Either way, any engagement is helpful for the show to grow. But let's go to the first category, which is story. And I gave story a 4. I actually really liked this story. Elaine is getting poems given to her anonymously, which we find out eventually is from Jim. I guess it's more of a premise, but I enjoyed it, and I like that the powers that be are seeing that they've got a great actor in Lloyd, and his character is fun, so they make him sympathetic. It was a good move. So let's go to acting, which I also gave a 4. I thought the acting was really good. Marilu Henner is really hit or miss for me, but I thought she was pretty good in this one. Christopher Lloyd is excellent. Everyone else was good. So let's go to dialogue, which I gave a 3. It wasn't terrible, but it could have been a lot better. They had a really good premise, but they executed it weirdly. It should have been funnier, but as is often the case with Taxi, they went too serious with it. That being said, it wasn't as serious as they've done in the past, so maybe they're learning. And it was a Jim-centric episode, but every single one of my laughs was Jim. No other character got me. Now, is that acting or writing? I'm putting it on the writing this time. So let's go to episode coherence, which I gave a 3. I like that we got to see some depth added to Jim, and everything sort of followed in this story, but there were some moments that didn't feel right to me as far as coherence. Elaine makes Louis prove that he wrote the poems, but doesn't do that with Don. She comes home to Jim in her apartment at the end and isn't startled at all, even though he's put a metal castle in the middle of her living room where the couch used to be. And on top of that, she says, why don't you just drive your van home? And we cut to Jim being out in front of her apartment, and his van is fucking gutted. So she didn't know that his van was all fucked up? She didn't just walk past it? These are a bunch of little things, but they still don't help the coherence. So let's go to character relatability, which I gave a 3.5. I would have liked a little more clarity on whether Jim was into Elaine. Now, at the end, it makes it pretty clear, but for a while there, it really seemed like Jim was just trying to cheer her up and that he wasn't romantically interested. Then he was? That threw me off. Now, it could definitely be that he was being caustic and not wanting to announce his crush, but his character hasn't been established where that's believable. Anyway, that was my only real problem with character relatability. Everyone else was pretty relatable, including Elaine. All right, so that's it. It's kind of a not great rankings here, so it needs a decent laugh counter to stay out of the bottom 3 tiers, and the laugh counter was 11. So it's not like a terrible laugh counter, but I don't think it's going to pull it out of the bottom 3, and it didn't. It had a grand total of a 28.5, which makes it a mediocre. As for the series average, it's at a 25.5, which keeps it as mediocre, but continuing to climb, so little by little climbing up. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you get access to all of our archived episodes. Also, remember, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like. It really does help us out. But I will leave you with this. Back in the 70s, Jim was a secret admirer. Today, it's probable cause. Because he's a stalker, you see.
It isn't funny if you explain the joke.
Elaine is getting pawns. Like, really thirsty.
What is that? Is that a beer?
Yeah.